The legal flower market boom in Illinois led to over $3 million on its first day of sales, which took neighboring states like Michigan weeks to do. But since then, early entrepreneurs have struggled to compete against the illicit market due to licensing regulations and high pricing, especially when we look at Chicago with its high levels of gang activity and the city's hustlers' mentality. The trap is thriving here, but for how long? Will it still be sustainable as Illinois' lagging green market finally begins to catch up? Welcome to another episode in the LMC Trap Tree series, a sub-series of high design history, where we're going to explore the Windy City's trappers and smugglers in this newly legalized market. Because in many ways, the streets are still extremely viable play with flower in the shot. Please make sure to like button, share this, subscribe, comment down below, and follow me on all the social medias. The links are down below in the description. Anyways, this is LMC. Let's run it. Chicago's O'Hare International Airport acts as a global smuggling hub with more travelers passing through than LAX. But after Illinois is legalized, Chicago PD has publicly announced that no domestic travelers caught with flower at either O'Hare or Midway Airport would be arrested. You'll even find an amnesty box at the terminals to toss away your flower before boarding. But of course, these are hardly used, with literally only a few dozen collections being made in a year out of tens of millions of travelers. However, literally days before legalization, federal agents would get a tip about a private jet suspected to land with large amounts of contraband, including flower, pills, and firearms. On board was rising underground rapper Juice Wrld. Well, at this time, he'd kind of become, world famous. But Juice Wrld, who at the time had the #2 hit in the country with Lucid Dreams, well, things would end tragically when he decided to swallow as much evidence as he could, leading to his passing at the age of 21. But also, what would be, one of the other things that would come out when it comes to this whole story is that people in his group were, having tons of different pounds of flower on board the plane, which is a typical, tactic used by trappers, right? Getting your own airplane and, trafficking it, wherever it may be, all over the country or the world, right? But RIP to Juice Wrld. He will be missed and his music will live forever. Now, before legalization, most of the illicit flower entering Chicago was coming in from California, but Michigan's legalization has been introduced to the illicit market supply simply due to logistics, with Chicago being only an hour drive. This has opened up opportunities for individual hustlers to upsell Michigan's lower priced flower, while traditional movers with the Cali connections continue to ship their packs with the options to bring legit West Coast brands to the Midwest market. Of course, this all depends on your connect, whether they're tossing you fake packs or the real deal. Most are simply ensuring they are pushing quality for their street buyers. Depending on the buyer, we know for sure the dealers have been raising the prices alongside the legal market. This really isn't anything new for most dealers though. Some people get the homie price while others get taxed. It's just how it goes. But with the introduction of the legal market, it was given the streets more opportunity to capitalize, with new buyers willing to tap in, but not happy with the price at the dispo. After the tax, the average price of an eighth is sitting at about $63, with $80+ eighths hitting the shelves, making it some of the highest priced flower in the nation. Meanwhile, Colorado, the average price is $32. Still, even with the extra room to upcharge, some dealers have begun seeing the impact of the illegal market on their cash flow. One dealer who's been in the game since 2013 says sales have dropped by 25%, going from about $80,000 down to around $60,000 a year. By the end of this year, it's expected that the illicit market will be surpassed in legal sales for the first time, with $2.3 billion versus $2 billion from the illicit market. Now, this could be a turning point in the legal market pricing for buyers as well. Right now, there are less than 24 licensed cultivators. 7 companies control 60 of the 110 stores in the state. And we are starting to see a major consolidation with companies headquartered in Chicago, like Cresco and Verano. And these are multi-state operators ranking as 2 of the largest seed-to-sale companies in the US. Cresco has the maximum number of licenses, with plans to buy Columbia Care, a Manhattan flower company, for $2 billion, essentially positioning Cresco and Verano as the Coke and Pepsi in the flower industry, right? Because of the limited number of cultivators, the larger companies like Cresco have been accused of price manipulation, purposely keeping the wholesale cost high for dispos. And this has been a fuel for the illicit market to continue on. Even as prices come down, most are predicting that the illicit market is still going to be around $1 billion by 2025. Now, most of the illicit market flower activities remain low-key with home grows, underground events, and delivery services in Chicago. It's not as common to find the type of illicit shops that you find in New York, but they absolutely exist. More often, you'll find shops using the Delta 8 loophole to sell, regular, flower products. But because these products aren't tested, it's unusual for these products to actually contain high levels of traditional Delta 9 flower. But a more explicit example would be a pop-up shop on 1276 West Grand Avenue, which was selling, pre-rolls, cards, edibles, and, magic fungi. Because of the fungus, right, they were hit with an additional felonies on top of their own flower products. And the popularity of the fungus has already been a part of the counterculture and flower community, especially those who prefer natural substances when it comes to psychedelics. You can find a variety of these options at some of the Chicago's underground parties and events, from raw caps to chocolate-covered, edibles. And last year, Chicago PD took down 2 unsanctioned events back-to-back, resulting in 5 separate dealers getting busted for flower and fungi. Now, since legalization, you really have more of the local trappers operating things compared to before. The largest bust in Illinois history was before legalization back in 2010, which was a front company that was set up in Rockdale, Illinois, south of Chicago. And they were shipping 6 railroad cars filled with almost 11 tons of flour from Mexico. Now, Texas Border Patrol made the discovery with their canines that sniffed out the bundles packed in a masonry dust. After contacting the railroad company, they arranged to track the train all the way to a storage warehouse in Chicago Heights. Each of the cars were unloaded with forklifts to move the packs onto a flatbed trucks and then transported to a smaller storage facility near the warehouse over the course of 4 days. Nowadays, it's not worth the risk to move large quantities into legalized markets. Most of the movement is left up to the street trappers and hustlers. This is especially true in areas like the south side of Chicago, where there is a lack of legal options compared to the north side. Now, this is because Illinois' strict zoning restrictions can vary from one municipality to another. Flower businesses can't be banned from operating, but zoning restrictions can make business establishments difficult. This drives up the price of the few properties and areas that qualify, that alone alter the landscape, or who could start business and who couldn't, with a higher financial requirements. And with higher financial requirements, you absolutely want the best location possible to make the money back, right? Well, before 2022, you had to gamble with a lottery system that would decide what location would be available to you. That only made things more unattractive for solo entrepreneurs. However, the larger companies that are trying to simply capture the market share, well, it's not as much of an issue for them. Thankfully, they stopped doing that back in 2021. Still, though, the central business district of downtown Chicago remains off limits, so your only options are either go north or head down south. Right now, the north side has nearly twice the number of dispensaries as the south side. And the south side of Chicago has always been a major battleground when it comes to the plant. During, alcohol prohibition, flower was actually legal. It was especially common to find Chicago's jazz nightclub scene when they were more commonly called jazz cigarettes. The steel mills in the south side operated for almost a century with cheap labor from Mexican immigrants. Many of these workers migrated with flower, becoming a major source of the spread of the plant into Chicago. However, when the Great Depression hit, many Americans were fearing job competition and welcomed Illinois' 1931 prohibition on the plant. This led to the arrests of many minority workers who used the plant recreationally, and a history of overcriminalization that has lasted into modern times. To put this into perspective, the year flower was legalized in Illinois, Chicago was still arresting 3 times more blacks than all other races combined for flower-related offenses in 2020. Illinois ranked 3rd among states with a 7.5 times more arrests of blacks than whites for possession. Meanwhile, ACLU, or the American Civil Liberties Union, found that even though white motorists were pulled over less, they were the ones found with the higher percentage of contraband. While overall arrests have gone down, blacks still remain as a target compared to their white counterparts. And before we go on, I just want to thank our friends over at getseedsrighthere.com. Get 10% off your entire order at getseedsrighthere.com by using my code LMC10 at checkout. Get high quality clones and seeds at getseedsrighthere.com. Now, let's jump back into the video. So, in areas like the Fourth Ward in Chicago, the flower market was pitched as a possible solution to social equity issues involving the plant. Their last alderman was federally indicted on racketeering, bribery, and attempted extortion. This is how the home of the largest wealth gap in Chicago. Chicago's wealthiest households have 206 times more income than the poorest. Paul Pierson designed this campaign for the Fourth Ward alderman around many social equity concepts with the flower industry in the community. He claims most members of the community don't even realize these programs exist because the money allocated for them isn't actually reaching the communities. Unfortunately, Paul Pierson was knocked out of the running due to his technical formatting and filling errors that would be too costly for him to challenge in court. The money it would take to fight in court would have been the money it would have taken to run the campaign, unfortunately. Now, Chicago has continually struggled to find and maintain black leadership in its communities. During the 1960s and 70s, influential figures began rising up, capturing the attention of government groups like COINTELPRO, which is the controversial counterintelligence program that was forced to be dismantled due to the public's disapproval of tactics, even though COINTELPRO in a different form is still happening to this day, right? But the COINTELPRO movement, right? They were accused of infiltrating and instigating criminal activity to disrupt the counterculture movement, such as the Black Panther Party. One of my favorite leaders of all time, literally, somebody that we could probably use today, very much so. But the leader of the Illinois chapter, Fred Hampton, the leader of the Black Panther Party, was assassinated during a Chicago police raid on his apartment at the age of 21. He was considered as a charismatic and outspoken leader that advocated for civil rights and social justice. He united all of the different races as well under one banner, under, a pro-worker message, which is extremely threatening to the power structure at B that's still today. His death led to widespread controversy, with allegations of the government successfully silencing him. Other influential figures at the time in Chicago weren't considered to be as positive of an impact in the communities, at least when it's all said and done. Jeff Fort was co-founder of the Black Pea Stones gang, which became the L. Ronkin organizations that was known for trafficking and violence. However, the FBI tracked phone conversations, financial and travel records that provided evidence of conspiring to commit domestic acts of terror in the US on the behalf of Libya. Libya had a history of financially supporting anti-American and anti-Western groups under Muammar Gaddafi. Gaddafi was known as a dictator that violated human rights and financed terror against his own people and other countries around the world. Eventually, NATO drones destroyed key parts of the convoy that was traveling in, leaving him vulnerable for capture by his own people, who beat, stabbed, and shot and executed him. That's called the Arab Spring, right? Back in 2013, I think. And Jeff Fort, was sentenced to 80 years, becoming the first gang leader to be prosecuted under federal terrorism statutes. Like Jeff Fort, Larry Hoover was a gang leader with a reputation for defying the system, but also used the Gangster Disciples gang for trafficking and violence in the community. And it was also used as a, protection, system, as well as a way to gain economic wealth. Right. But by 1973, Larry was already serving a 150 to 200 year sentence for the murder of William Young, a dealer who had accused of stealing from the gang. Still, while in prison, he managed to rebrand the Gangster Disciples, or the GDs, into an organization called Growth and Development. It didn't take long for the community and police to realize it was the same old gang being run by Larry Hoover from his cell via phone calls, coded letters, and prison visits. And perhaps the biggest giveaway was that all of the same leadership roles from the gang were identical to the new organization. Now, the 1970s RICO Act made it so that the government could prosecute gang leaders for the criminal activity their organization commits. This results in new life sentences without parole. And this also resulted in a community that was primed for disorganized criminal leadership that would perpetuate into modern times. With the introduction of the legal flower market, this was seen as a new avenue for social equity programs to bring back leadership and revenue into these communities. Unfortunately, many have complained these social equity programs haven't been robust or transparent enough to actually help the minorities they claim to support. For one, these programs eliminate all federal funding for the individual due to the plant still being federally illegal. This means no subsidized housing or food assistance if you decide to take a leap into the legal market. Besides that, Illinois decided to craft their own social equity criteria with no regards to race. Now, the idea that a race-neutral social equity program would be able to include more individuals, but with limited licensing, the results actually excluded many of the people they claimed that they were trying to help. In 2021, there were only 75 social equity licenses available across the entire state. To qualify, you had to complete a questionnaire that awarded your points based on your level of qualification. Social equity businesses and operations, security and record keeping, and flower knowledge and experience awarded the highest amount of points out of the 250 points available. And the smallest amount of points was given to the category for veterans with only 5 points. However, this resulted in hijacking the social equity program into a veterans program instead. Now, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that to a certain degree, right? Shout out to our veterans. Thank you guys for our service. But with only 75 slots available and thousands applying, only perfect scores received the opportunity for licensing. And this means you absolutely had to be a veteran in order to qualify, even though it was only worth 5 points. And this left non-veterans with perfect scores with zero chance to compete. Now, this is where it gets fishy, right? Scoring social equity license applicants in Illinois has been a major issue altogether. KPMG Consulting, which is a big company from Canada, won a no-bid contract for $4.2 million to be the official flower reviewer for the entire state, or the application reviewer and scorer. However, controversy soon came when it was found out that one of the risk management consultants with KPMG was granted a license under the EHR holdings. It was revealed that Hamd Kamal, the KPMG employee, along with former Chicago Police Superintendent Terry Hillard, were both listed as managers in this company that was looking to snatch up 5 licenses. The governor, J.B. Pritzker, had a spokeswoman who gave the governor support of KPMG and the situation, saying KPMG, quote, had a plan in place to ensure any potential conflicts of interest were addressed and did not influence the process, end quote. They went on to say that, quote, they are a large international firm ensuring that there aren't any conflicts of interest. And having an employee of the reviewing company, which no other company was allowed to compete with, in addition to having the police superintendent of one of the most over-criminalized populations in the history of the US, really doesn't look very good for social equity, let alone the branding of a flower company, right? It just overall smells of some fishy behavior going on. And that same business that Chicago is still punishing minorities for 3 times the rate, I'd say that it's a conflict for anyone, and that who are interested when that is the case. And it didn't take an entire team of international consultants to help me come to that conclusion. So Illinois, if you're looking for cultural consulting, well, we got you here at LMC. Tap in with your boy. Speaking of the governor, how many of y'all have heard of the Chicago cartel? A lawsuit filed by True Social Equity in Flower claims the state is being controlled by well-connected companies linked to 3 wealthy families in Chicago: the Pritzker, the Wrigley, and the Kovler families. And well, you already know Governor Pritzker, whose family also operates Hyatt hotels. If you're from Chicago or even St. Louis, then you're definitely familiar with the Wrigley family. And they are the makers of Wrigley Gum, and of course the home of the Chicago Cubs is named after them, Wrigley Field. And they're also heavily involved, the Wrigley family, or starting to be involved in the flower industry, right? But Ben Kovler is the CEO of Green Thumb Industries, a Chicago company that has found their way into 14 different states, including New York's newly legalized market. By the way, we have a bunch of different content covering the New York market, whether it's the trappers, smugglers, or the, different regulations for retailers. So go check out those videos if you get the chance. But because of their national operations, right, Green Thumb is able to pull in nearly $80 million in a single quarter. This might be the leverage that True Social Equity claims is being used to keep flower prices extraordinarily high. We're talking pricing as high as $4,000 for a pound compared to $200 to $300 in Cali. But perhaps the biggest twist to this is Governor Pritzker and Akerna, a publicly traded flower software company allegedly controlled by the Pritzker family. Supposedly, the software tracks prices, supply, and demand in the state flower markets that is fed back to the Chicago cartel. It's even been alleged that they even have their own board members who sit on the board of competing companies. Nothing has or probably ever will come out of this. It's likely this lawsuit was dismissed, as I've not found any other information on its past in its announcement almost a year ago. Specifically, that there were inaccuracies with the lawsuit, with True Social Equity claiming Akerna is a plant-touching base operator, when in fact they are actually a publicly traded company with all of their board members listed for everyone to see. So they messed that one up. But no other parties involved have ever made any further comments about the situation. There have been other complaints from businesses operating outside of the state who have tried applying for licensing and failed. Sozo, a Michigan-based company, filed a lawsuit claiming that they were unfairly made their company ineligible to win a social equity license. However, this actually only confirmed one of the issues I believe that was happening in their industry. When it comes to these social equity licenses, who is applying for them? Well, let's break down that Sozo's original strategy. Apparently, they went into the areas of the state where people were deemed disproportionately impacted by the war on flower to hire as employees. From there, the company is able to qualify as a social equity applicant by using those employees to represent the company. And this is exactly what I suspected with many of these large companies attempting to buy up the social equity licenses. Unfortunately, when you look at who's actually at the top of these companies, it's not the ones who were disproportionately impacted. Instead of social equity ownership, we're seeing social equity employment. If successful social equity ownership is not the goal of your social equity program, then it's really just a job placement program. In case you need me to really spell it out for you, this process of white business owners buying their way into social equity status has been dubbed the, quote, slave master clause. However, Sozo actually dropped the lawsuit, claiming that their suit would do more harm than good by challenging the new licensing system. Governor Pritzker updated social equity licensing from needing a perfect score with the 5 points from veterans to only needing 85% of the max score to qualify. And this also created 2 additional lotteries with easier levels to qualify to inject even more diversity. Because of this new system, it narrowed the definition of a social equity applicant, which disqualified Sozo. Still, even when someone deserving actually receives a social equity license, they are pushed into a market that is almost designed to fail. This is why we are seeing so many of these black shop owners selling off their licenses, especially when out-of-state buyers are offering millions of dollars to take your failing business off your hands, or a business that you haven't even started, but you have the license. And after over a year of licensing in 2021, there were 0 majority black-owned dispensaries in Chicago. At one point, there was a single dispensary on the south side of Chicago, Mission Dispensary, which was originally black-owned. Turns out though, the day that they were granted their license was the same day the phone calls started rolling in with million-dollar offers. And there is no law stopping social equity licensees from selling off their license to non-social equity buyers. When Mission Dispensary opened up as a legal med shop, they almost immediately began operating at a loss. High taxes and a legacy market that pulls in $6 billion versus the legal market at $2 billion makes it incredibly difficult for any company, let alone a solo entrepreneur. Once these licenses are sold off, the new owners are almost always not people from these communities, so the money flow doesn't get put back into these communities, but are instead siphoned off to grow the company in state or expand out of state. Mission Dispensary was bought out by white owners with the launch of the recreational market. Without a rec market, you're inviting top legacy competition to crush the med market. We instantly see how things flip when rec opens up, the Mission Dispensary pulling in 6 times its normal sales during the first day of making rec available to the public. In fact, it wasn't until last month, February 2023, that Chicago's first independent black-owned dispensary launched in Logan Square. The Grasshopper Club is a family-owned business with 2 brothers and their mother running the business. Because one of the brothers, Chuck Brewer, was arrested for possession, he was given the opportunity for licensing. Chuck says he wants to support other African Americans to open more independent dispensaries. However, he points out that many African Americans don't have the funds to even enter the market with social equity in the first place. More support, guidance, leadership, and networking is needed to help independent black entrepreneurs to have level footing to launch a business. And by the way, the Grasshopper Club is located in a 1920s bank building in the 2500 block of North Milwaukee Avenue. Tell them LMC sent you. Also, before we go on, I just want to thank our friends over at getseedsrighthere.com. Get 10% off your entire order at getseedsrighthere.com by using my code LMC10 at checkout. Get high quality clones and seeds at getseedsrighthere.com. Now let's jump back into the video. So it should be noted that as of right now, even with a limit of 10 licenses per company, only 7 companies control more than half of all the dispensaries in Illinois. Only 18 companies have been granted grow licenses, and this has played into Illinois' higher legal market prices with low supply and high demand. However, with Missouri's market opening up, buyers have already noticed a pricing difference by driving downstate for their purchases instead. Perhaps as we see more of the surrounding states competing, Illinois will start to reposition itself in the overall market to accommodate legacy market buyers. And in a lot of ways, I think that the folks in Illinois need to realize that the illicit market is going to continue to boom. The streets are going to continue to serve most of the population in Illinois because the prices are so high. What these greedy people and these greedy policymakers and big corporations don't realize is that their greed is going to be their undoing, at least to a certain degree. I mean, just look at California, right? So if you're in Illinois or you're in Chicago, use the streets to your advantage. If you're a small, aspiring flower entrepreneur, use the streets to your advantage. Build your brand, because really it's there for the taking. The streets are wide open, right? Just obviously move the right way. And until then, right, we are going to likely continue to see newly independent owned businesses, especially social equity entrepreneurs, continue to struggle and get bought out by larger corporations, right? And of course, these are just my thoughts. Definitely let us know your opinions in the comments, and check out this insane situation that's going on in New York. We've got multiple different videos. You can also check out the situation that's going on in Atlanta. We just put a video out about Oklahoma, so make sure to go peep all those videos. Anyways, please make sure to follow me on all the socials, join the Discord, follow on Twitter, Instagram, and all of the other platforms. The links are down below in the description. Big shouts out to everyone in Chicago and the overall state of Illinois. I can't wait to visit out there soon, and don't hesitate to tap in with your boy via email or DM. Anyways, this is LMC, signing out.